And we have Jen in the background with us today. So here's our agenda for today's meeting. This is our purpose and how we're going to do this. So the what column includes our objectives for today. So as promised, we're going to engage in a problem of practice just so we can practice before you go to facilitate your own. Then you'll collaborate with one another to continue to develop the content for your next cohort meetings. And then we'll review upcoming just development opportunities. So take a moment now and let me know if you have any questions or wonderings as you peek at this agenda. Okay, and with every agenda, so you may be wondering, like, why is this agenda say what, why, how, what's happening here? So this agenda comes from Elena Aguilar's PD book, and the objective of sharing an agenda like this is just to let everybody know, here's the topics that we're talking about. This is what we're going to be doing today, and there's no secret. So that's why we've been working to share these. Another component of the agenda is for people to set their intention for the time together. So often when I'm in Elena's book club, my intention is just to be fully present. So I try to like put things to the side, which I know is a little bit more challenging for all of you in your roles. Or you may say, I want to commit to like learning one new thing that I'm going to implement right away. So just thinking about today's learning and what you want and how you want to make the most of our time together today. So just something to say to yourself, nothing that has to be shared with the group. And so with that, the first part of our time together today is going to be spent on your development. This topic was selected at our last meeting because we said, what's this going to look like and how's it going to feel? So let's experience it together. So we're going to work on a problem of practice with one another. So the question that I have for you today is not perhaps a question that you all would be struggling with, but maybe your two principals might be struggling with. In the majority of your time in your mentor cohort meeting is going to be spent with this problem of practice. Also, you will be giving a problem of practice question in September. You'll let them know what the question is for their meeting in October so that they have time to start thinking about that as well. So our question for today is, what is a barrier to calibrating the classroom framework as a leadership team? So as we explore this problem of practice today, I want you to think about this through two lenses. First, as a person who is solving a problem of practice as part of the group. And then second, noticing and noting, like, what do I need to think about as a facilitator of a problem of practice, right? Because we're really going to let the year two principals think about these things. All right, so let's jump into it. So the first thing that we'll need to do is assign a timekeeper. And then what we're going to do is go through these stages here of the protocol. So the current real problem faced is going to be the answer to the question that we have. I put it on the bottom of the screen. What's a barrier to calibrating the classroom framework as a leadership team? We'll have each person kind of share out, because my guess is some of these things are going to be similar. And then as a group, we'll present possible solutions. We'll offer feedback and ideas. And then your two principals will share, I think I'm going to try this, right, for the next time. So yes, go ahead, Tammy.
We're giving them the question ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what is clarifying questions if they've already had the question for a month? That's my question.
So what's going to happen is so let's practice this right now, and then we'll kind of see. The clarifying questions are as they answer this question, because they'll be answering the question with your group. Then the group will ask, so if you said,
Got it.
Okay. All right, cool.
Thank you. Sometimes I didn't get that.
I get it too. It makes sense. All right, so let's talk right now, and let's have each of you share a potential barrier to calibrating the classroom framework, like with your leaders. So what's something, whoever wants to go first. Oh, and actually I didn't assign a timekeeper. So for the purposes of this meeting, and we're at 10:12 right now. All right, I'll be the timekeeper for today's meeting too. All right, so I'm the timekeeper. Our current issue that we're going to explore today is the barrier to calibrating the classroom framework as a leadership team. All right, so who would like to go first? And this doesn't have to be something that you're really living. Obviously, it would be something that they're living, but you may not be because you have more experience.
I can go first. That's fine.
Sure. Mhm.
I think one of the barriers is just making sure that the deans within themselves understand the expectations of the classroom framework, and what that should look like and sound like within a classroom. So before you can, and I know calibration builds on that knowledge, but just having that basic understanding of it so you can build can be a barrier.
Yep. Okay. Sabrina.
Wait, I read it as we should be asking questions right now, not solving the question. I'm sorry.
No, so what we're doing right now is, so your two principles would be like answering the main question at the bottom. And so now we could ask, since Shorvana shared, we could ask Shorvana clarifying questions
Okay. All
about
right.
what she said if we need any, if you had any questions to ask her.
Okay. So I would say that a barrier could be that not finding the time or deans getting pulled during calibration time that impedes us the discussion.
Okay. I'm jotting these down and we can like think about how to work through this fast in just a moment too. Jen, did you have something else to add too that's a barrier?
It was just similar to what Sabrina was saying, protecting that time and keeping it sacred so that you can fulfill the observation together to be able to come back and then take that time to process to truly calibrate.
Okay. Tammy added time management, which goes along with Jen and Sabrina, as well as dysfunctions of the team. Erin, anything else that you would add, or are you in agreement so far with what everybody else has said?
Yeah, I would also add everyone's level. Another barrier can be everyone's level of understanding around the classroom framework.
Yeah.
Because I don't assume, and it happened here, but we're all pretty even killed now. But my deans were all on different levels in terms of really their real authentic understanding of the classroom framework. And so one of the first things we had to do is really unpack it and discuss it from that standpoint.
Okay, so now here's an opportunity too, because Erin said one of the things we had to do was unpack it. So let's ask like some clarifying questions of Erin, right? As we think about this, Erin, like, what did your unpacking look like?
Well, we printed them all out, laid it out. And for instance, let's take classroom culture, right? We took classroom culture, we took that portion of the framework, and we spent one session, because I think slower is faster when it comes to the classroom framework. And so we really unpacked, okay, what does it look like to develop positive relationships, right? What does that look like? And then what we did was we ended up pulling some non-negotiables from that, and then organizing the classroom. What does that look like? Managing student behavior, moral focus, some real examples of what that looked like. So that was one session.
Got it.
And then we transitioned over, to planning. So those, it ended up being a series of meetings. You can't fit it all in one, but that's kind of what our unpacking process looked like. And everyone, even the folks who didn't really understand it, they were in a position where they felt safe and vulnerable to say, hey, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I didn't know, and we all kind of grew together.
Okay. And Aaron's response, and you guys obviously are like going to be more advanced than our year 2 principals in most cases. We do have some year 2 principals who have like several years of experience already prior to coming to NHA. But Aaron kind of like also suggested a solution, right, for the problem that he's having. I don't anticipate that that will always come up right then. But what are some other questions we may ask or the group might ask regarding finding time? Like thinking about like the facilitator role. What are some things that we might expect to hear them ask one another? Go ahead, Jen.
I think asking like what are the steps you take to first and foremost calendarize those items? That would be the first question I think would come up. And then what's the process for and expectations for people reaching out to get support? So if we're being interrupted, are we being interrupted because it's an emergency? Or are we being interrupted with something that maybe is a minor situation that could be handled in half an hour from now?
Right. Yep. Really good. What other thoughts are there? Okay. All right. So clarifying questions, we would want to ask that person maybe to get, like Jen saying, to know a little bit more, or saying, well, what is the process that you have? What happens when there's a fight, right? And you guys are scheduled to do observations? Or what happens if a parent comes into the office and is demanding to meet with someone, but you're in a classroom, right? They may be like working through some of those things a little bit. And so now is the time when we would present possible solutions. So for Aaron, he said a possible solution for everybody not being on the same level is to do like an unpacking session, right? So he would share potentially that. Giovanna, you also had the same thing about like deans understanding the expectations. So what would be a potential solution? Is it different from Aaron's or similar?
No, it's the same. We just chunk it instead of going in looking as a whole as classroom culture. We would really take the time to just dive into each indicator within the classroom culture framework to understand it, and just making sure that everyone gets an opportunity to share their thoughts. That's how I resolved it when I first became a principal.
Okay, great.
And consistency, just doing it consistently.
Yeah. And when you say consistently, like, what does that mean? Because I want us to be like very specific for people
100%.
too. Yeah.
We do it. We still, to this day, we do it every week.
Got it.
We do every week. But we have a different focus every month. And we announce it to our staff what our focus is. So when they see us coming in together, like all 5 of us, they know exactly what we're looking for. So of course, this month is classroom culture, but then we switch it up every month.
Yeah. And just now I'm like stepping out of all of this for just a minute, but Giovanna, like I was referencing your email that you had sent out too, like to your staff. That might be something, if this comes up in your conversation, that later you would say, and I have this resource to share, right? Like what communication could look like. And they may ask questions, well, which wings do you go in? How do you know? Like what time of day? What happens to everybody else's schedule, right? All of those potential things. What other solutions might come up either for Aaron and Giovanna's issue of like deans understanding the basic expectations, or do we want to switch into time management? Any other ideas for unpacking?
So I think with unpacking, like one of the key things that I noticed, like I have 3 deans that are all new to Plymouth in the last year. So we go as an admin team too. So I think the one thing is sometimes when there's a group of 4 of us unpacking what that should look like, you know, there's difference in opinion, but I usually notice that there's one outlier that really just like is like, that's developing for me, but we're all like, oh, that's effective. So what I generally do is then build it into my O3 that week with that dean to like do one-on-one coaching, because sometimes group coaching doesn't always work in the way I want it to. So I think maybe thinking about if it's one person that's not necessarily on the same page or not seeing the teacher on the rubric in a certain light, we should really spend more time with them one-on-one.
Yeah, good suggestion. That's a great suggestion. All right. Well, that's unpacking. So now let's turn it back over to time management. So what are some solutions that your year two principals may offer one another regarding time management?
I would say the number one thing would be the people that are having trouble with the time management, help them work on that. I have one dean that always will say she doesn't have time. Well, let me help you find time, and then work through it with that specific dean.
Mhm.
The leader has to be good with time management. So that is probably the bigger issue. If you lead the expectation, it will happen. If you don't, it probably won't.
Okay, so modeling. Modeling.
think
And
also-
it's easy. It's easy to facilitate time management when you're really leveraging your Outlook, and you
Mhm.
have things hard scheduled and calendarized, and and if you get crazy like it with me, because it's like my life personally and professionally, then you color code stuff,
Yes.
so that these things are, anything in the blue has to do with my O3s, with deans, as well as my support staff, and leadership meetings are in green. So I live by Outlook, and that's the easiest way to kind of structure time management.
Got it. Yep. Love my Outlook too. Jarvana, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think it's just understanding what the biggest roadblock is. Is it student behavior? Is that the main thing that's really pulling us away? Then if it is, what we do is we put into place, okay, during this time that we're going to do admin observations and debrief after the observation, my ABSS is on call. And then so we have someone who's going to step in and handle, if that's the main roadblock for us, is behavior. For some schools that don't have an ABSS, what we did was we just said, okay, then bring those students down to the office, and then they can sit there. At this point, the behavior is already done. Now we just got to find time to investigate, but I'm not going to use that time to investigate unless, it's already done. They already fought. They already cussed at the teacher, already flipped over the desk. Unless they're like screaming irrationally, where they're disturbing the office, they can just sit in the office until we finish, and then we'll handle the behavior. So just, I guess, understanding what do you feel is the number one thing that continues to hinder you, and then trying to find a solution for that, I think is how we have gotten through where we're not interrupted when we do our calibration.
Yeah, having those systems in place. Jen, did you want to add something as well?
I was just going to say the same thing when it comes to specifically the managing the time, making sure that the school is aware of the process too, that of when it is important to get in touch with the dean, and then always knowing that if there is a behavioral situation that shouldn't go to the dean level quite yet, how do you follow through with that process? So making sure that you communicate that out to the staff. And that was something that became really apparent when I transitioned to this building last year, is that we needed out the gate to put some kind of process and protocol in place, because we were getting calls left and right, like help, help, help. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? This isn't a crisis. So
what's the emergency, right?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Just noticing that right out the gate, and then responding with, this is what the expectation is. So that when we do get a call, if we do go and it's not an emergency, we give a reminder about the process, and that way we can minimize things. So it's worked out well, and I think that those solutions are really important to talk through for newer principals who might not be thinking about, what do I do, or how do I make sure teachers know I'm still here for you, and this is the way that I'm here for you, with
Right.
so that they still feel supported as well.
Yeah, I think these are some really good points. Very good solutions, right? So now if you were the person that shared, so Erin and Giovanna, you had shared about having an issue, like making sure that all of the deans were on the same page, right? So you would, like, during this session, and maybe we need to tell people at the beginning, hey, have like a piece of note paper or something where you can jot down ideas that are shared. So you guys would have your feedback and ideas. So at this time, if you were in the role as a year two principal, are there other questions that you would ask the group about the feedback that you shared about unpacking, or, developing them like through like having a system like Jorvana said, like having a focus each month, and making sure that they're observing every week. Are there other questions that you would have, like clarifying questions to ask the group? We're kind of like in two roles right now, so it's a little bit a little bit tricky, right? Like we're doing two lenses here. Okay. All right. And then what about like Jen, Sabrina, Tammy, like time management was yours. Do you have any questions about like what the group shared as ideas? Pretend like you didn't share your own ideas.
All right, I'd say, so Erin, let me ask you more about how you train your deans to use their Outlook calendar effectively and efficiently.
Do I answer that question?
Yeah, well, sure. Like, what would you say? Yeah.
Oh, so what I do is I project it up in the parent room where we have our leadership meetings. We have a projector, and I actually open up mine. And I show them, because I don't assume that anyone knows how to create a calendar event and share it with folks and invite people and reoccurring things and all that. So I do a whole visual walkthrough first, and you start with the basics. How do you create an event on your Outlook calendar? And so we dummy one, and then I have them do one. And then we go a little deeper in terms of adding, because I mean, back during the COVID times, adding a Google Meet, right? People thought that was complex. It's very simple. Here's a button. add it, and then you can copy and paste the link. You can copy and paste the link even to an email, so they can access it either from their Outlook or from their email. So just kind of spoon feeding and getting them to a place, and then showing them how to share their calendar with me, so that in the event that I'm planning something, I don't put anything on their Outlook that's going to be a conflict with what they already have. And so I always build my O3s with them around their O3s with their direct reports. So I don't know, Jen, if I answered long answer to a short question, but that's kind of what that process looked like.
That was perfect. Thank you. That's very helpful.
All right. And so now when we would come back to the end time, like Jen might, like she just said, thank you, Erin, that was really helpful. That's kudos. So then as the facilitator, I may ask the group, what do you plan to try before our next meeting, right? What are you thinking about? What do you want to try to change in your practice to improve the problem that you've been experiencing? So this could look like people just using the chat box to share, or you calling on people to say, what are you going to try? So people should be jotting down things, right, that they're going to try for the next meeting, because as part of your presentation, you're going to check back in with them on that, right? To see, hey, did you do that? How did it go, etc. Right.
Emily, can I ask you a clarifying question? I think you said this at the beginning, but I didn't know it was coming to process it. So sorry.
No, that's great.
So are we assigning somebody to bring a problem of practice? Are they all going to bring their own, and then we're just going to do one, and then we're going to table the other ones for future meetings? What does that look like? Or are we developing the problem of practice?
So you all will actually, just when we get into the collaboration time, you're going to create your question that you'll ask, and just like we practiced, you'll see that people will have similar things, right? They're not going to be like too far off. Like we were able to match you, Jen, and Tammy today. We were able to match Jorvana and Erin today. Their practices are going to be similar enough that you can kind of go through and discuss them. If you find that there's one that like really needs more time or deserves its own time, then you have the freedom to make that adjustment and bring it up in a future meeting as well. So
they should be prepared to come with one, or I'm just asking on the spot.
So what I'm thinking is either before the meeting. For this first one, it's going to be a little bit different because they're not going to know, right? So before the meeting, you could use your stream from your Google Classroom, or you could send out an email to them to say, hey, as part of our time together, we're going to work through this question as a problem of practice. And so that they can come prepared for that meeting. Is that next week, your guys' meeting? To come prepared to the meeting with an answer to the question, right? So does that answer your question, Sabrina? Is that clear? Okay.
And most of us
Yes.
have 4 people, so we could always also send them out in groups to talk about it and come back together, right? If
Yeah,
there's someone.
you could do that too. Yep. You could do that as well. Yep. Or but you may, like for the first one, you may want to be with them just to like see how that's going. Because if you send them out into breakout rooms too, like popping back and forth to be able to support them, because ultimately you all have the most experience being an NHA principal, and some of these people are brand new. So, well, not brand new, year 2.
I
right?
think that's the next step for my group. I
Mhm.
think starting off, I think the focus will be on, facilitating the protocol. And I feel like once they get one under their belt, then the next time they're able to, because they got a rhythm, next time they're able to go out and discuss it on their own. But I'm with Sabrina. My wonder was, are we creating the question
Yes.
that's presented to them as a problem of practice?
Yep. And
Okay.
you're going to do that just in our next portion here. So let me move on to this next. Yeah. So your thoughts, I think we've been sharing those thoughts. It also like thinking about like what happens if one person is, consuming the whole time, like what's something that you might say to that person, right? So that we have time to answer everybody else's. How might you handle that situation if one person is like, and then I have this, like they're treating your problem of practice time as their therapy session, right? So what are some things that you might say to them if they are, consuming that time from the rest of the group?
I would just say, let's talk about, that I hear them, and then let me give you a call after and see if I can assist you any further.
Okay.
But we also don't want to answer all their questions because we're not necessarily their DSQ, but at least I do find that my people, well, 3 out of 4, call me all the time just to say, oh my God, I need to vent for 5 minutes and say something. So I would think everybody would know that I'll just call them for me.
Okay. Great. Yep. Jen, what did you want to add?
I was just going to say something similar. Like we can touch base offline about this. Let's set up an extra time together so we can process together. And then I might like call on somebody else. Like I might say, Emily, do you have something that you want to share about this? So like pinpointing the next person.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Any other questions that you have about like facilitation of this? No? All right. Well, let's move into our collaboration time then. So we're going to prepare for our meeting. So you have your first meeting is a week from today, and then your next one is October 18th. So we have a couple of things that we're going to do. So the first thing that you're going to do, Jen, if you're still with us, can you drop their links to their Google Classroom as well? Otherwise, these are the steps on the screen. Thanks, Jen. So you'll open up your Google Classroom. You'll go to your cohort class. And then at the top, you'll see where it says people. So you'll click on people. And then you're going to invite your year 2 principals as students to your classroom. So I'm going to give you some time right now to do that. And if you have any questions while you're doing that, just let me know. Yesterday, like with my dean mentors, some of them had names that were similar to students. And so they were like, which one do I pick? So just let me know if you have any questions as you're inviting your year 2 principals to your classroom. So
Well, I'm ridiculous, but I've never created a Google Classroom. So how do I invite? I'm showing my true colors here. I'm not techie.
That's
everybody.
okay. That is okay, right? So if you,
I'm there. At least I'm there. I found it.
okay, you found your classroom. And then at the top where it says, you'll see this stream classwork people, click on people. And then you'll see teachers at the top and then students. So click the little symbol with the person with the plus sign. And then you just type in their names. And then just give me a virtual thumbs up, or you can give me a real one because I can see everybody today when you're done. Okay, Tammy, I got you. Got you, Jen. Got you, Sabrina. Got you, Giovanna. Aaron, are you good or you need another minute? Good? 1 minute? Okay. All
So
right, good.
just
Go ahead,
real
Jen.
quick,
Mhm.
under my people, I think
Yeah.
Mallory may have gotten married because her name is now Mallory Brown, if you're looking for her. I had a-
Okay, I think it might be the other, but
Oh,
thank you
okay.
for
I
that.
think it's the opposite.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. Well, her name changed.
I will make sure that I change that. Thank you for that. Okay. All right. So now we're going to determine a problem of practice for both your September and October's meeting. So what I want you to think about is what's a question that's timely and relevant to what principals might be experiencing right now. So Jen, Jen Conley, I just realized 2 Jens. Jen Hopfish, can you please drop in? I linked the ABCDE priorities and starting fast focal points. You all may be experiencing something yourself as well. So what are what's a question that you think would be really good to help your 2 principals kind of problem solve on?
I feel like right now staffing is always an issue. So I'm wondering if maybe there's like, if you're not fully staffed, how are you working to effectively support these classrooms out the gate? And what are some, when you don't have highly qualified teachers, how do you keep those classrooms intact and engaged? I feel like that's always a start of the year issue.
Yeah, that would be good too, because if they are fully staffed, then at least you could relate the alt cert type people too, right? Okay.
How about behavior too, like identifying students, new students, returning students who might need additional support? There could be a problem they're dealing with.
Mhm.
Honeymoon's going to be over soon for some of the
Right.
new.
Yeah, yeah. Right. The whole first month usually goes pretty well, and then the true colors start coming out sometimes, right? When people start feeling comfortable. Jarvana?
I was going to say my main goal that I'm focused on is our teachers, those who have no experience, and just supporting them so they don't quit because they're struggling with managing behaviors. They're struggling with just understanding the curriculum. I mean, even teachers who have some experience, but it's mainly my alternate cert teachers here that are just really struggling and providing them that support. I got one that I'm already nervous, like, is she gonna make it? And that's a concern because if she leaves, there's that communication I've got to do. Then I've got to try to find someone else. It's horrible. So that's my number one issue right now for me.
Okay, supporting those newer teachers. And also important to note too, when we're talking to the year 2 principals about things like that, making sure that we're saying like what your support looks like to the dean to support the teachers too, right? So that we're trying to make sure that they're not being the 5th dean or 4th dean in their building, right? That they're coming up onto the balcony and having that wide overview as well. So yeah, really good. Any other ideas?
I mean, the one we did, the classroom framework, that's
Mm-hmm.
that to me, when I thought that was a question, I thought that was great because I think everybody is in a, like Aaron was saying, like they're all pretty even right now, but there was a time when they were all over the place. And I think that's the case in every school.
Yeah, that happens for sure. I had another one too that I had thought of potentially, but what's a barrier to coaching your deans in the beginning months of the school year? I think that happens a lot when you're exploring like, hey, how's your coaching going? And they're like, well, what coaching? I've been dealing with making sure I'm fully staffed and making sure I'm hitting my enrollment goal, and I'm checking in with them for O3s, but we're working on this, right? So that could also be a potential issue. So right now, just thinking about like what 2 questions do you want to have? One for September, one question for October. A good way to frame the question is what's a barrier to, and then your verb and whatever is happening, right? To ask that question. So go ahead and take a moment now to like jot down your questions that you'd like to use. And you'll actually type them right into your presentation. So let's go ahead and look and find where your presentation. So hopefully you starred this folder so you can find it easily, but it has a little tree. It's the 23-24 year 2 principal mentor folder in your Google Drive. So you would open up your Google Drive. You can search for that, or Jen Hoppish, are you able to drop that link in the chat, please, for everybody? And then you can click on that. Thanks, Jen. And then now inside your folder, you will see 2 presentations. You'll see one for September and one for October. And as you open that, you all should have editing permissions. Oh, I'm opened up Aaron's to look at on my screen here. Aaron's already been in there, so awesome. The areas that you are going to need to update are the community check-in, which is on slide, let me take a peek here. Let me see. Your community check-in is on slide 5. So slide 5, like picking your picture there. You can choose one of the 3 things that I shared, or you're welcome to pick something on your own, whatever you wish. So community check-in, and then your problem of practice is on slide 7. And then your task management is slide 10. And then your launch is just whatever you would like to do. That's on slide 13. So those are the main areas. As you look through this presentation, what questions do you have right now?
What do you want them to say during the reflect on progress tab? What do you
So
want-
normally, like for your October meeting, that
Mhm.
will say like, hey, how did that go with what you said that you were going to work on from our last problem of practice, right? So we might ask Jen, hey, Jen, how's your Outlook calendar coming along? That was something that you said you wanted to work on. Or, hey, so-and-so, like, how's your office communicating to people when they come in and they demand to see you right then and you're out doing observations, right? So how's that going? So that's when you would follow up to like reflect on the progress made. Since this is the first meeting, reflection on progress could look a little different. You could say, hey, how did the start of your school year go? Like, what's one thing that you're really proud of? And just do some celebrations for your September meeting. But October will look like kind of following up from your problem of practice.
Perfect.
Also,
I just added it. Thank you.
yep, you're welcome. Also, just important to point out is at the bottom of the slides are the talking points for you. So if you just slide that up a little bit, it's all timed out, and ideas for what you can say are listed there. If you want to change those around a little bit, be my guest. This is your presentation, but those pieces are there for you, so that you know what the heck to say, what's going on there. So I'd like to give you all some work time right now if you want to just talk with one another, or if you have questions as you're going through this. Since there's only 5 of you, do you want to stay in this main room, or do you want to do a breakout of like 3 and 2? What's your preference?
I would like to stay in the main room. I don't know what other people are feeling, but just 5. If someone's just you and another person.
Right. Okay. All right,
I
great. Well,
agree.
I'm going to mute, and if you have any questions as you're working on this, just let me know. We just have like questions and needs, and then like a launch for you all. So I'll give you probably a good like 7-ish minutes. Does that sound okay to work on these? Okay.
What are you guys thinking for September? I know we don't
Yeah,
all have to have the same thing. I know that, but just curious what you guys are thinking.
I think I want to do, Emily, the one you just did, because I agree. Tammy, you said that before, and I'm like, I feel like I have somebody from Colorado, so they're into like coaching already. We're only in week 2 over here, so we haven't started a lot yet, but I think I would like to do it. I'm wondering how you phrased it, if you could throw it in the chat box or like read it to us again, Emily. What are you guys thinking?
That's a good idea.
I'm with you, and I'm already thinking about the October one, letting them know that we're going to do, what are the barriers to coaching, because that's when they've come up, right? Like after they've been in for a few weeks and they know. So I almost feel like I already know October's too.
So wait, Tammy, you say you're doing this in October, or you already know what you're doing? You're doing this in September, and you already
I
know
like
what you're doing
this
in
for
October.
September, but I'm thinking that I might even just know that I'm doing the coaching, because that's when they get into it and they realize, oh, they're not stopping and coaching their deans like they should. Oh, they're not going into coaching sessions with deans and teachers. So I'm thinking possibly that. Oh, I love you. You typed it for me too. Copy.
Also, as you're working on slide 11, where it's like actions for next session, that's where you would include your next problem of practice question as well. And the only thing that you would need to drop to them in the chat box is a link for them to take their survey at the end as well, so we can capture that feedback that I'll be sharing with you. But other than that, you don't necessarily have to open up any additional windows, breakout rooms, etc. Unless you feel comfortable and that's something that you eventually want to do.
So they're for artifacts, you're saying we should ask them to bring something to show us how they use the last thing or how that
Yes.
helps.
Yes. So you might say, again, I'm going to use Jen as the example. Jen, open up your hey, let's look at your Outlook calendar. How does it look now? Right? And maybe we see some color coding, awesome, this looks great. So something like that they said that they're going to do, or that that they could maybe show the group, it would be an artifact. Because a lot of people can say, Jen could say, oh yeah, I made adjustments to my calendar. It's awesome. And she really didn't do anything at all. So artifacts sometimes will be easier than others. So just keep that in mind too.
All right, Giovanna, what are you doing for your community check-in? Your stuff is always fun.
So I like the Would You Rather one. I'm going to use that one for September because I can get to know them. And then I'm probably going to do one of my quick icebreakers for October, just to kind of just to build that relational capacity with each other so we can just feel a little bit more comfortable. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that one. But I do like the Would You Rather that Emily has provided. I have that for September ready to go.
Wait, what would you rather? Where's that? I missed it.
It says,
Oh, at the bottom. Okay, I see it. All right, thank you. I always love what Giovanna does to get for her culture, so I like to steal from.
Well, I'll email you once I figure out October. I'll email you October's. I'll write myself a note. And if I forget, you email me. You know that, Tammy. You email me, and I got you.
I'm going to become schmoopy like you if it kills me.
You'll love it. It'll make your life easier.
I'm working.
All right, we have about 1 more minute. As you're putting this together, if you need some time with me before next Wednesday, or you're having issues getting started, feel free to text me or call me or email, whatever you need while you're presenting. Again, you just have to present the presentation and drop the one link. So it shouldn't be too challenging, but I've been a presenter before just starting out, and I've had my own challenges. So again, feel free to reach out to me if you do need something, or if you want to practice anything. I will make time for you for sure. All right, so I am going to get back to where we were. All these clicks. All right. So any other questions, needs, things that you perhaps have questions about, I guess, or ideas? I think you guys have been asking them pretty much throughout the session. So if you think of something afterwards, oh yeah, I forgot to ask about this, let me know. One of the things that came up is, potential communication to your cohort. I don't have to be copied on everything that you do. So if you want to send them a reminder hey, looking forward to meeting with you tomorrow or 1 week from today, here's our problem of practice. I highly encourage you to send that out to them. So your cohort meeting is next week, and then a week from today. And then you have another cohort meeting, and then we'll come back together as a group on November 1st for our time together to work on our next presentations and do some learning. And then go ahead, Tammy.
For visits, we are asking our DSQ or their DSQ?
So if you travel to one of their schools, it's going to hit your school budget. if you ask them to travel, it's going to hit their school budget. So depending on what your travel looks like would be who you ask, right? So if you wanted them to come together on a day, which might be a little bit challenging now that people are like really more involved, but if you did, you would just want to make sure their DSQ like okays it for them to do that. Good question. All right. Any other questions about that?
No, but I just want to say this was very well ran and organized and very helpful. I like how you had us go through it ourselves, but then you also provided us time to talk. Very well done, Emily. I can tell a lot of effort and time and thought was put into this, and it was I'm very grateful for the way that you're running this.
Thanks, Giovanna. I appreciate that. I do. All right. And with that, I launch you today with this quote: "The delicate balance of mentoring someone is not creating them in your own image, but giving them the opportunity to create themselves."